So for this lecture, what I'm going to be talking about is conflict and cooperation. Cooperation being perhaps the stranger of these two things. Before we get into this, I want to point out a couple things that you should be careful about. Here on the left, what you see is a bundle of meerkats. Meerkats group together, they team up, they cooperate to keep the whole colony safe. Adult meerkats will tenderly raise one another's offspring and so forth. On the right, what we have is a species of bird, I believe it's a gannet. You can see under the mother gannet, there is a somewhat older chick, and you see a younger chick right here on the ground. What has happened is that the older chick has thrown the younger one out of the nest, where it is exposed to the sun, and this mother and the brother of this younger chick are just sitting there watching it die. It's easy to think of the meerkats as being gentle or heroic or kind, and it's easy to think of the gannet, the mother gannet and her siblycidal son, as being really horrible or greedy. When considering the evolution of behavior, though, it's really safest to think of behaviors as something that they have an effect, okay? But not to think of them as imputing or implying something about an organism's state of mind, because we really don't know what's going on inside an organism's head. I mean, particularly not when you're talking about organisms like honeybees. What we do know scientifically is that when meerkats help one another raise their offspring, there is a certain effect, there's a certain outcome to that. When the gannet throws her or his baby sibling out of the nest, there is a certain outcome to that, and it affects everybody's fitness. Okay, what's going on in their heads is beyond the reach of science, and so we're going to leave that out of this discussion. Not that it isn't interesting, I think it's very interesting, but it's not something that we can approach with the tools of science. Value judgments also are something that we can't really evaluate in science. So saying that one of these animals is moral and the other is amoral or immoral, you can say that, you can have those opinions, but it's not something that science can help you say. Anything that sort of has meaning or value to the individual is subjective, and science can't weigh in on those questions. So organisms helping one another is one of these strange topics that seems as though it often shouldn't happen. To see what that is, what I really want to do is separate a couple different kinds of helping. There's something that kind of the technical term for it is cooperation. And when one organism in the jargon of animal behavior, when one organism cooperates with another, the organism that is doing the cooperating actually benefits. Okay, so both individuals are benefiting. So for example, if you have a herd of antelope like the ones shown here, they all benefit from being together in a herd, because if one of them sees a predator, that warns all of them. But nobody is being harmed by being in that herd. Okay, this is the sort of thing that you expect natural selection to favor, because each individual is doing something that helps them survive and reproduce. However, there is another kind of helping that we need to think about, and it helps if it helps. We should start by introducing some terminology. The really puzzling kind of helping that we were going to go into is what's called altruism. Altruism is when one organism helps another one at a cost to itself. So an act hurts the organism that is doing that act, but it helps some other individual. So for example, it's best to think about this in terms of a specific act. So let's say, for example, you've got a hedgehog that has a worm. And this hedgehog it can either give the worm to this second hedgehog over here, or it can keep it and eat it itself. Okay, the act is giving the worm. The actor is this hedgehog over here. And I have the sides in quotes here because we don't really know what's going on inside the hedgehog's head. All we really know for sure is that it either gives the worm to this other hedgehog or it doesn't. Okay, but it's the actor that either does or does not do the altruistic act. The recipient is the organism which either does receive help or does not. What's interesting about altruism is that there is a cost to the actor. So if the actor ends up giving the worm to the recipient, that reduces the amount of food that the actor has. Potentially it reduces the actor's fitness, maybe a little bit, maybe a lot, but it has some kind of cost in terms of fitness. There's also a benefit involved. If the actor gives the worm to the recipient's fitness will go up by some amount, and that's called the benefit. So the actor may or may not do the altruistic act. The recipient is on the other end of the exchange. An altruistic act is one that has some fitness cost to the actor and some fitness benefit to the recipient.